What's up, everybody? Welcome in that time of week. It is the Sooners on SI podcast, a Tennessee edition of the Sooners on SI podcast. Ryan Chapman here, driving the bus. If we swing north, we can say what's up to our man, John Hoover. John, aren't you bummed you didn't drive all the way down to Norman on Tuesday for 21 glorious minutes with head coach Brent Venables?
Well, there was also 16 with the offensive coordinator too. So yeah, no, it was not the most productive press conference we've ever seen between a loss and a really big road game for this team.
It was fine. It wasn't anything bad. It was fine. It was short. It was curt, which is okay. You also missed media day for basketball, which I know that you just love. Carson was there.
That's the 17th year in a row I've missed media day.
I know it's tough. That's the other streak. Carson and Carson, did you get accosted by an Oklahoma basketball player? Because I was told that I look like a dad, which was heartbreaking. Just kidding, Jeff Ronco. He's an awesome dude.
No, nobody asked me about my age, so I will take that as a win. I like it when people tell me I look younger. It used to be something that offended me, not so much anymore. Now that I'm in my upper 20s, I'll take the youthful comments. But basketball media day was good. Very excited to get out to Knoxville. Should be a fun week.
Yeah, should be awesome. Carson and I will be hitting the road Friday morning, which means you'll see a lot of stuff from John Hoover, a lot of stuff from Ryan Aber as well. Mr. Aber, no men's basketball media day for you, but the women get raw. We are so close to crossover season, and Ryan, I am panicked.
Yeah, it's always a fun time of year, right? And especially with both these basketball teams, you actually have to pay attention a little bit early in the season with the women playing UCLA, the men playing Gonzaga really late in their second game of the season. So it should be fun. And, we'll see what happens on the football side. Hopefully we can build some momentum. But at least we didn't have a baseball game that went till 2 a.m. last night. So was able to get a little bit of rest.
Helpful. That has nuked my entire week, which nobody cares, and sorry, but when the morning stuff, I'm not really good at the go to sleep at 8:30, wake up at 4 and catch up on everything. I like to experience everything live because I'm like the worst person about, hey, I saw the score and watching back, and it just takes out some of the excitement, some of the anxiety, the highs and lows, which means that when the World Series goes to 18 innings, I'm on my couch at midnight, and I've got sleep apnea, so I've got the CPAP machine. Well, I don't like to move it from the bedroom to the couch. Well, here's what happens. I got the worst of all worlds, Aber. I didn't make it to the 18th inning. I woke up at 4 a.m. on the couch with Scout the dog being why didn't we ever go to bed? Why am I roaming around out here? Which meant that I started my week exhausted. We don't catch up on sleep. We sleep in March. We sleep in April. Sorry.
Okay, John Rothstein.
Sorry. And because of all that, I am just hoping that I can be to bed tonight and Thursday so that we can have a safe drive out on Friday. But shout out to Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, it was a fun one for sure. And this has been a fun World Series. And, we'll see where it finishes. But, yeah, I imagine you could use some sleep after that and the Thunder game last night.
Well, we don't talk about that. Good. Go Thunder, go. Keep trucking through. All right. We'll talk a little bit of men's basketball at the end of the show because we did have media day, talk to Porter Moser, all that fun stuff. But let's dive in. Oklahoma trying to rebound. A disappointing loss to Ole Miss. Certainly on Monday night, we talked to a handful of players, including quarterback John Mateer. Tuesday, talked to, per usual, Ben Arbuckle, Brent Venables. And the theme of the week started off with John Mateer in postgame on Saturday night. Rolled through to Monday night. We saw this after the Texas game. John Mateer very, very hard on himself. And I don't know if OU fans care about this or not. I find it a little refreshing after going through the Spencer Rattler, none of this is my fault, why are you yelling at me? John Mateer basically being I have to play better football. Stop talking about my thumb. It's not my thumb. It's happening with his eyes and between the ears. And it's been an interesting week, Hoove, because everything has centered around whether it be Brent Venables, how do you help your quarterback kind of regain some confidence? Ben Arbuckle, how do you help him see the field better? And John Mateer, what do you do? It seems like the first time we've seen maybe, I'm not going to label it right now a crisis of confidence. That seems like a step too far. But the first time maybe Mateer's confidence has been taking a hit without it being oh, well, you didn't practice this week. That kind of thing with his showing against the Rebs.
Yeah, I agree. And this is Oklahoma, I said it earlier in the week, is in a delicate position right now. They're not really sure how good they are. They know they're not as bad as they played against Texas, and they know they're not as bad as they played in certain situations against Ole Miss. But they also probably realize, okay, we're not as good as we thought we were too. It's kind of a little balance, a little delicate little area that they're in. They got to find out quickly against Tennessee and moving forward who they are, who this team is, what this team's identity is. And I think one of the things moving forward that puts Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle in a difficult spot is how do you rebuild that confidence, not just in John Mateer, start with John Mateer for sure, but how do you rebuild that confidence? How do you kind of delicately balance? That's the psychology part of coaching. You know, somebody like Jimmy Johnson was always so good at the psychology part. Some coaches are not good at that. Some coaches are X's and O's guys. Some coaches are football guys and they just want to have a better football product. So Oklahoma's in a little bit of a tenuous spot right now with finding out their own team identity. And they've got to fix some things, right? Confidence wise, clean up on some small things, blocking, special teams, ball security, all that stuff. They got to clean up little areas and still keep instill the confidence and push this team forward because this finishing stretch ain't getting any easier, guys.
Yeah, kind of picking up on that. I like how Mateer, like he did against the Texas game, didn't really make excuses for himself. Said it's nothing physical. Not really sure what it is, whether it's confidence, just not seeing the field, not having a good vision out there. But you've got to like that from your starting quarterback, like I've said before. And I mean, there are certain aspects of this team that you wonder, okay, was that maybe a little bit fraudulent? Were they a little overblown just because they beat Auburn and Michigan, who, as it turns out, aren't amazing football teams this year? John Mateer, though, I mean, say what you will about Auburn and Michigan, those are two very good defenses, though. And John Mateer very much, I don't know if I'd say he won those games, but he was a very big part in winning those games. I mean, that surgical drive late against Michigan, going down the field, scoring the game-winning touchdown against Auburn, those were huge plays. And I mean, it's hard to pin everything from the Ole Miss and Texas games on John Mateer, but his struggles, his inconsistency late in the games, just missing people, those were huge. And it's very clear that something, even if it's not physical, something's still off with him. Maybe his confidence has gone down. Maybe it's just rust. At that point, it seems a little unlikely though, just because he's played 3 games now. So it really is. It's a big thing. The defense showed lapses against Ole Miss, but they still looked, I thought, pretty largely good against one of the better offenses in the nation in Ole Miss. Um, we talked about this on the post-game pod, but even the good defenses are going to allow touchdowns, big plays against dynamic offenses like Ole Miss. Like that's going to happen. You could have wished for a better performance from the defense, but it's hard to pin most of that game on the defense, and a lot of it comes down to John Mateer being accurate, having the right reads. He talked about on Monday night that he thinks a lot of the reason he I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said I'm not seeing the field. It's not like I'm missing everybody, which I mean that's true. But he did miss in a lot of the biggest situations against Ole Miss, and I think that's why the criticism's been so heavy on the internet, elsewhere. But Mateer also said he tunes that out, just leans on Arbuckle, his teammates, Coach Venables, obviously. So curious to see what that response is against a Tennessee pass defense that's admittedly not very good.
Yeah, going back to what Hoove was talking about confidence and how you instill it in your team. I heard a thing from Mac Brown last week, I believe it was on a Texas-based podcast, but was talking about Oklahoma in 1984 when OU goes to Kansas. I believe it was at Kansas, and just getting killed at halftime, but still in the game. And Mac Brown goes in there and just lights up his offense. He's the offensive coordinator for the Sooners and says, "Hey, you're going to lose this game the way you're playing. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. You're going to lose." And then they go out and sure enough, they lose. Believe the score was 28-11. Weird score up in Lawrence. And he said Barry Switzer, got with him after the game on the plane on the way home, and he said it's never a good idea to leave a seat open next to you, which I thought about Ben Arbuckle and Giovanni Gibson a couple weeks ago. But Switzer sits down and says, "Hey, this team loves you. They're going to listen to what you say, and you told them they were going to lose, and they lost." And Mac Brown talked about the lesson that was as far as how you coach, how you build your players up, and talked about playing at Oklahoma State with Vince Young, and that memory came to his mind, and he embraced that in a different way and said, "Hey, we're going to go out and we're going to win this game," and they did go out and win the game. I'm curious to see how Brent Venables handles this, especially in light of what he was talking about yesterday and sort of being not quite a cheerleader for John Mateer, but the way that he is a defensive minded head coach has to manage the confidence and expectations with the quarterback. And I just thought that was fascinating. I know it was a little turn there that we took, but certainly going to be interesting to see how John Mateer bounces back, because he said repeatedly on Monday, "It's not the thumb, it's not the thumb, it's not the thumb, it's other stuff." Well, you were great at the other stuff early in the season. I think it's time to see it now with this game coming up.
That 84 game, notoriously, and Aber and I have viewed this exact game story multiple times over the last 2 years for like one reason or another. The great Bob Hersom.
So good.
This was a loss for the Conservatives. When do you suppose the last time the Conservatives took one on the chin in Kansas? Probably never, but it happened Saturday, and some liberals tore down the North goalpost afterwards. Guys, we are failing as an industry. We just don't write like that anymore.
Well, Ryan, this is tough because it might make me a little bit emotional, but I loved Bob Hersom. One of my favorite seasons in my career was covering the Oklahoma City Redhawks when he was working for their website. I didn't interact with him much when he was at the Oklahoman when we worked together, but afterwards, after he left, and just a fantastic guy and the epitome of the curmudgeonly sports writer. But the man could put together sentences.
Yeah.
Sure. Iconic. No, it seriously though. I am very, very curious because I think this is a big stretch, obviously, for Ben Arbuckle. We'll talk about Ben Arbuckle here in a second. Everything he said about how do you get your quarterback up and running again like this. But I think it's big for Brent Venables because I think that there were times maybe in the first 2 seasons where the whole team has some ebbs, some flows, some highs, some lows, but Brent was so focused on fixing the defense, and the relationship that Jeff Lebby and Dylan Gabriel had. Jeff Lebby, still a young offensive coordinator, but more seasoned as far as years in college football than a Ben Arbuckle. He had, 3 years, or not 3 years, excuse me, a couple of years, a year prior with Dylan Gabriel, and then they had 2 more years together. So I think that was probably like, we've got our own stuff here on the defensive side of the ball. Let me know what I need to do for Dylan Gabriel as far as putting my arm around the quarterback, trying to make sure that they're not taking too much on their plate, but also helping them with the leadership side of things. But I don't know how involved Brent Venables was in trying to pick a Dylan Gabriel back up, a guy that's a veteran quarterback in college football. Last year, I don't know if, and it's something that we would just speculate because we're not in the meeting room, was Brent Venables walking in and being so aggressive and saying, "Stop turning the ball over," that led to Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins Jr. looking gun shy? Was it that because you didn't have an experienced quarterback coach, that wasn't like a message from Brent Venables, but is that something that Seth Luttrell was relaying and they were gun shy? Was it something totally separate from the messaging of the coaches and just they lost confidence and no one had to was able to rebuild it back up in a redshirt or a sophomore, I guess technically, in a true freshman? I don't know what that looks like, but this year the defense has nitpicks and things they certainly have to do. They got to get off the field on third downs on some of the long drives against Texas, Ole Miss, stuff like that. But this feels like a moment where Brent Venables, with a really, really young, just turned 30 offensive coordinator, and a quarterback that is more experienced than a Jackson Arnold or a Michael Hawkins Jr., but only has one prior year of starting experience, not in the SEC. I am fascinated, John, about this dynamic here and we're only going to get to see what we see on Saturdays and what we hear from the guys on Mondays and Tuesdays. But this feels like, as much as this is a big finish to the season going into next year for Brent Venables and everything that is the Brent Venables era at Oklahoma, it feels like right now this is the crossroads of How do you support an offensive coordinator that has schemed up some stuff that the quarterback missed and then like abandons the run at times? How do you help a quarterback that we saw earlier in the year? He wasn't perfect 100% of the time, but it felt like the big difference is that John Mateer was running into things, and if he made a mistake, he made it at 100 miles an hour, or if he made the wrong read pulling the football, he's still able to make something happen out of it. He was able to make the big plays late. I think Oklahoma fans were okay with that, John, knowing that you were going to probably, and he was clutch in the end, which always helps. But after watching a season of like deer in the headlights from Jackson Arnold, I think they were happy with the gunslinger. And you didn't get a gunslinger against Ole Miss. You got a guy that patted the football and missed wide receivers. And not only did he not make plays downfield in the second half, he just didn't make any plays at all.
Yeah, and that's the part that has got me confounded, because the first, we saw his body of work last year, like you said, not against SEC defenses. Let's call it what it was. And what's funny is when we'd call it what it was over the offseason or in the preseason, people such as Brent Venables, for instance, would say, "Oh yeah, he's never played against SEC opponents. That's obviously a big thing, and that's obviously important," in a tongue-in-cheek, joking kind of jab you in the ribs kind of way. Like it actually does matter. We found out playing against an SEC defense every weekend actually does matter. Those guys are really good. And there's got to be some, I think, bear with me on this first statement because I got one coming behind it. There's got to be a little grace for John Mateer because he played in that, truncated Pac-12 schedule, Mountain West schedule last year. Now he's playing in the SEC. But there is some evidence that you can come from a lower level, lower division, and succeed at quarterback in the SEC. I think we've seen Diego Pavia do it. We've seen Trinidad Chambliss do it, right? Really close up last week, and now we're seeing Joey Aguilar, this week's opponent, do it for Tennessee. So there's some, groundwork there that you can do what John Mateer is trying to do, I guess. But now it's up to John Mateer to have that confidence and to make the plays that are there and to see a receiver that's open and go ahead and get it to him, or to look off of that receiver that's not open and get to your second read and get to your third read. He's just not playing right now in that level of confidence, whatever that is, whatever qualifies that as, confidence or experience or whatever. He's just not processing things like a confident quarterback right now. He's got the ability. I really think he does have the ability to be a star quarterback in the SEC. He's just got to take the top off and unleash it.
It's something that Ben Arbuckle talked about on Tuesday. Part of his duty is whether it be working on the footwork or I thought the thing that he said a lot when talking about like how do you rebuild Mateer's confidence or make sure he's fully confident and all that stuff. And I thought the thing, Carson, that stood out most was basically him saying, I need to do a better job, make sure there's no gray area, which to me, that meant read between the lines. On this play, here is read 1, here is read 2, read 3 is run, like stuff like that. How do you simplify it? Or if you're empty, and I think that this is in a weird way a really good week for that, because while you're taking a road trip to Neyland at night during a blackout, Lil Jon will be present. While all of that is happening, you're also playing, Carson, a Tennessee defense that this is like Alex Grinch vibes with an SEC facelift. It's not quite intentionally undersized, but the pass defense stinks. The run defense is so-so. How much of that's because they make plays versus the yards are so there in the passing game that people just don't run the ball as much because you can have it through the air. Now, if you get into 3rd and 15, they're pretty good. They can turn you over, Carson, but like this should be a day where Ben Arbuckle should be able to say, here's read 1, here's read 2. One of those is going to be open. Go.
Yes, no, I agree with that. This Tennessee defense is very leaky. I mean, you look at subpar teams they've played like Kentucky, Syracuse. Those teams have put up points. Tennessee won both of those 2 games that I just made an example. They won them pretty substantially, but that's because Tennessee's offense is staying good. The defense didn't really hold the other end of the bargain. If they had a semi-decent defense, I mean, you could be looking at an undefeated team right now. I mean, seeing how close they were to Georgia, Bama was very close, and then that pick 6 by Aguilar kind of sunk them. But yeah, this is an opportunity in terms of the defense they're playing. The caveat to that is Neyland Stadium is going to be loud. It's going to be hard to communicate. I know that John Mateer said something about we have to make sure our communication is at its very best because this is the most hostile atmosphere that we've played in this part of the season. So I think that's the right approach to have from his perspective, just knowing that's going to add a challenge. But Arbuckle definitely has an opportunity to maybe simplify things, point out what's going to be open, what's not. And I think things should be able to just unwrap for this offense, which is much needed, obviously.
And Ryan, we at least three of us were in the house in 2015. I was very, very close to Lil Jon and the speakers, but especially when you talk about the road games they've been in. Temple was fine. South Carolina, Carson, it was pretty loud to start. It's not anywhere near Neyland, and they were out pretty quick. Texas is its own animal, but you're looking at a situation where we'll see the first availability report tonight, but I don't. I'm not anticipating. We'll see what Derek Simmons' status is, but if you're rolling out there again with Fasusi, true freshman, Foje, true freshman, either Hito Zaida or Eddie Pierre-Louis, pick your poison. This is going to be the loudest stadium they've ever played in because Death Valley was turned down a little bit at the end of last year, and then Favechi will be fine, I would assume, and Jake Michael. This is his first like true massive road venture in the SEC. It sounds pretty daunting on the communication point.
Yeah, it really is. And, I've been to a lot of places. We'll go back to the fact that I'm old, but been to a lot of places and been to a lot of loud ones. And Neyland Stadium in that game, just before overtime, is the loudest atmosphere I've ever been in, period, point blank. Louder than Kyle Field back in the Reggie McNeil game, and what was that, 2001? Louder than several of the other ones, Ohio State, Notre Dame, things like that, and it was considerably louder. The stadium holds noise in a way that few other stadiums in college football do, and it's going to be a challenge, and there's no doubt about it. Although Ryan, you said blackout. Remember, it's dark mode.
Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, which is a crime because Tennessee should not be wearing anything other than the orange. But John Mateer thinks otherwise, apparently. We'll see where his judgment is. But
they've been good the last couple weeks.
They've got to figure out a way to manage that because it is going to be a bear, and especially late in the game. The crowd stays into it. You're going to have to, go to silent counts, go to different things to try to manage that because it's going to be really loud and really difficult. And when you've got a lot of relatively young offensive linemen and offensive linemen that aren't as experienced in that environment, I don't think, as big as Cal Stanford is, it ain't this. And for speaking for Jake Michaela, this is going to be a little bit different, and you can get sped up. We've seen OU struggle with penalties. I wrote about that last weekend, but especially on that offensive line. And those are things that can happen when you're on the road playing offense in the SEC.
Good news, I guess, is that Tennessee comes in more penalized than Oklahoma, one more flag per game.
It hasn't been as much the numbers. I mean, not that the numbers have been great. It's the timing of things and the way that they tend to stack up and also put them in third and unreasonable situations, or on the other side, take away turn third and longs into third and shorts and third and shorts into first and tens.
Guys, something that is going to bear watching this week in Neyland is John Mateer's efficiency. I think efficiency rating can be way overblown, right? What the NCAA specific formula is, Chuck Long taught me this years and years ago. The NCAA specific formula for efficiency rating, basically they put a ton on how many times you either throw the ball deep or connect on deep passes, or your receivers take the short passes and bust long catches. It's based largely on yards per completion, okay, and yards per attempt. Right now, John Mateer is 13th in the SEC in efficiency rating, 13th. And what that tells you is it's not that he's not being efficient. It's that Oklahoma is not connecting on chunk plays down the field. It's that the receivers are not popping those inside screens for long gains. His yards per completion, yards per attempt is down, at the bottom of the SEC. 13th in the SEC for Oklahoma for this offense, for Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. Seems kind of like a big waste, like a missed opportunity. And yet that's where they sit. So at some point, those receivers are going to have to, shake their man, get open. At some point, Mateer is going to have to hit them deep. And at some point, they're going to have to break tackles and create big plays, because that's what's holding Oklahoma. That's one of the things, I should say, that's holding Oklahoma back right now, is that the defenses don't fear the deep ball against OU.
Something we saw on the second completion of the game, that connection with Satania, the 39-yarder. And I know that we all looked at the 79-yarder, but at that moment, in that moment of time, that was the longest completion all year for Oklahoma. And that's certainly the good news there. And like we've said, this is a Tennessee pass defense that's going to be gettable. It's a Tennessee run defense that's ranked 55th in the country, but you look at their third down defense, which is in the 70s. Certainly Tennessee's red zone defense, which is 123rd. That tells me, again, that's where you look at, if you watch it, it makes a lot of sense. People just take the passing yards because they're there so easily. But this is a moment where Oklahoma should be able to do enough on the ground to make Tennessee be worried about that, to get the looks they want downfield. And part of that, too, is the fact that they have rediscovered Xavier Robinson. That's certainly good. Carson and I talked about that in the post game. We'll see if Torrey Blaylock has a designation on the availability report tonight, as he certainly looked like a guy that after the first snap against Ole Miss looked like he was like holding his arm as he came off the field. He ended up getting 6 carries, including, of course, the safety, which was just a disaster from like top to bottom. But it needs to be a moment. And Carson, Ben Arbuckle said, like, obviously, looking forward to getting the ball to Exmoor. I did ask him in like the nicest way possible, hey, dog, he shredded Alabama and Missouri. This is not like you were trying to project a true freshman, or like we've seen him in the SEC run the ball before. Why did it take you till 7 or 8 weeks to feature him? And we got what I thought was a fine answer, which to me, I read it as basically throwing DeMarco Murray under the bus in the most polite way, which is it's a body of work. Everyone's, not that Xavier's bad at practice, but everyone else is doing it. I don't think that Xavier Robinson's practice matters anymore, Carson. It's going to be Xavier Robinson and who else wants to come with him, which is, if Torrey Blaylock's healthy, him. And that's something to build off of.
No, it definitely is. I mean, I agree with you. Blaylock didn't look the same after that first snap against Ole Miss. I mean, he's been probably the most consistent back for this team. I thought he was very good against South Carolina, obviously. Even some of his slower games, really like the poise that he ran with, his quickness, his twitchiness. I think he's a good option, but getting a guy like X Robinson back in there is huge. It is puzzling why he hasn't been such a big featured part of this offense until very recently. But just the ability that he brings pass catching wise, you saw his speed on full display against Ole Miss on that long run. Even take out that long run, averaged more than 5 yards a carry. So, I mean, he was efficient, had a really good game. And it's just, yeah, I'm with you. It is puzzling. I was here for that Alabama game last year, and he looked awesome. I was like, this is probably the future. Assuming he stays at Oklahoma, this is probably the future of the running game. Very weird not to see him early on, but now that they've realized, hey, we have this guy that was really good at the end of last year, I think that's huge for this offense. Gives Mateer someone to maybe check down to. I think we talked about this in the post-game pod. Getting that confidence up, something that could help with that is just getting short passes. Some of those end arounds have really worked early on in the season. Just some shorter stuff. Remind Mateer, okay, you can do this. You can be a good quarterback in this league. I think X Robinson's a great player to help with that.
Just add it to the list of puzzling rotations. You look at wide receiver. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, Carson, but Aber, the 4th and 2, deciding that, hey, Zion Kearney and Ivan Carrion aren't good enough to get snaps all the other times, but we'll put them in on 4th and 2. Putting in, what was it, Elijah Thomas, Andrew Michael Carter on the Hail Mary. I understand that they're tall, but it's like, okay, so they're doing enough that in the play that you gotta have it, those guys can be on the field, but you can't do it on a second down in the second quarter when the other wide receivers, because like Deion Burks has disappeared. Jaron Kanik is not a guy that's happening over the middle of the field anymore. We didn't see any really Giovanni Gibson as far as a downfield passing threat or anything like that against Ole Miss. It was kind of Aber, Satania, or bust for the passing game. And I understand that a lot of the Burke stuff was like missed by Mateer. It's hard to like place that on John Mateer, but it's just the story of this offense is the rotations are puzzling. I don't know what's what, and at times I wonder, Aber, if the Oklahoma offense knows who their best 11 players are.
Yeah, and that's something they've really got to develop beyond just, hey, Isaiah Satania is the only one that's going to make plays in the passing game, and everybody else is just going to pick up the scraps. They've got to be able to spread it around. I mean, you look at all of these teams in the SEC. I mean, heck, you look at Tennessee with what they have in the receiving game. When you've got Chris Brazel and Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews that have all posted over 500 yards. Another tight end, Miles Kitzelman, it has been solid for them as well. And when you can do that, it just makes your offense so much more potent. And early in the game, you can find Isaiah Satania for plays and things like that. But as the game goes on and things tighten up, you've got to be able to show some offensive diversity. And that's something that's really been missing. They hope that Xavier Robinson can be a little bit of answer to the ground game aspect of that. I really like him in just from a power standpoint. He's a guy whose physicality sort of matches up to the SEC, and that's something that we've seen back to his Carl Albert days, that he just sort of looked the part, and certainly looked the part on Saturday. Not that Torrey Blaylock can't be that guy, but certainly Xavier Robinson looks like right now he's maybe their best fit in there. But they've got to find some of those other guys and get Jaron Canick going. I thought, his short game over the middle stuff early in the season was a big reason why some of that other stuff unlocked for them offensively. And then, be able to connect downfield a little bit more. Was just looking at the PFF numbers, passes over 20 yards. OU is 11 of 33 on those passes, and they've got to get better there. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be, right at 50%, but 33%, not going to do it there on those deep balls. They've got to figure out a way to get more of those happening, and certainly more of them from somebody that's not named Isaiah Satania.
Yeah, I mentioned John Mateer being more efficient. One way they can be more efficient with John Mateer is run the dang ball, right? Get the thing going with Xavier Robinson. It's amazing. And here's my question to you guys. When the running game is working, we all know that sets up success in the passing game. It should. If it doesn't, then you got a problem at quarterback or receiver or offensive line. But have we reached the midway point in the season where Bill Bedenbaugh's offensive line has suddenly come together and started blocking better, more aggressively? Have we reached that midway point of the season? Midway Bedenbaugh, we're going to call it. Have we reached midway Bedenbaugh of this for this offensive line?
I don't know if we've done that. I think that for Bill Bedenbaugh, this is the second straight year where it's just like, can you find five? And I know that, again, part of it is Derek Simmons goes down, things like that. But it feels like you've solidified, you live with the highs and the lows of Pasusi. That's what you do, right? With a true freshman like that. And it feels like the second that you get closer to saying, okay, hey, you've got four, and then you just had to plug Bojan because of an injury, then we see the Eddie Pierre-Louis, Heath Ozida switch up that happened for a drive basically against South Carolina. Then you go back to Ozida and he finishes it out. It was the 3rd and 1 that Ozida gets put on a sled and ends up in the backfield, and they basically say Dunzo. And I know Brent Venables on Sunday talked about really liking the aggression of Eddie Pierre-Louis. Maybe it's as simple as that for a group that the answer against South Carolina was aggression and strain, maybe they need Eddie Pierre-Louis, because it goes back to what Troy Everett said after the Crimson Combine so long ago, which was Eddie Pierre-Louis is a crazy man. This is paraphrasing, and he forces everyone else to rise to his level. And maybe that was the button that Bill Bedenbaugh finally found. And unfortunately, he's got Tennessee bye week, Bama, Mizzou, and LSU to figure that thing out. And I think that the question, the answer is, I don't know. It seems like that they found something on the ground a little bit, but I don't know if that is just a 2-week capsule against two of the not as stout run defenses. You got another one this week, and then by the time they make the turn and go to Alabama, it could all wipe back away because Bama, Mizzou, LSU are the three best defenses they got left on the schedule, Carson.
Yeah, definitely is. I think they need to use this game as a learning, just kind of getting some more learning before playing what is a really good Alabama defense, a really good Missouri defense. LSU's not great, but their defense is still really solid despite the however many points A&M scored on them on Saturday. That's still a good defense. Whit Weeks, a lot of really good players. There's a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to say you can experiment too much. It's not like playing Kent State. I mean, you can really try whatever you want against a team like that. Like you can't do anything too out of the box, but this is an opportunity against a good, not great run defense to just test what's best, what works with the offensive line. I know that I think it was Heath Ozida last week said that so much of it is the connection between the running backs and the offensive linemen, just what kind of chemistry they have. Just see what works and what doesn't get some of those screen passes, those short passes, like I said a minute ago. Just try to install that, see what is best before having to play better run defenses in the final 3 weeks.
It'll be fascinating. That'll be the offense. And again, Jean Mateer play better, and you copy and paste a lot of the stuff from Ole Miss, and I think that you're fine. So
I do think though, you've got to be careful in not going too far in that direction because Tennessee, while their defense has struggled, the sack numbers are really high. I think what are they, sixth nationally in sacks? Create a lot of turnovers too. So they haven't been a great defense, but to your point, Ryan, a long time ago, it does remind you of some of those Alex Grinch things where not great on balance, but they can jump up and bite you at certain points. And that's what I see out of the Tennessee defense so far.
they trade in havoc as opposed to just like traditional dominance. It's the havoc plays. And our old moniker, our old friend, turnovers equal victory. 9 of the 14 turnovers that Tennessee has gained this year have come via fumble recovery. So whether it's Jaron Kanak, who we've seen a little bit of that, and by a little, I just mean the first play of the season for him, Isaiah Satania, guys like that. Hold on to the foosball. That'll be important down in Knoxville. The other side of the ball, I find this to be very, very fascinating. You look at it last year, the Oklahoma game was kind of the canary in the coal mine for Tennessee's offense, the Nico experience, all that stuff. The 3 days of battling on social medias, did Tennessee take their foot off the gas or did Oklahoma's defense find something in the second half? Well, Tennessee took their foot off the gas against Arkansas and everybody else on the schedule, or it was Brent having a good defensive game plan to defend Josh Heupel's offense. Joey Aguilar, though, much farther along than what Nico was at that point. Tennessee is shredding SEC defenses as well as the non-conference slate that they rolled through last year. That they're setting like SEC program records for Tennessee, at least themselves, and points per game, stuff like that. John, it's going to be a fascinating matchup because it's another week. It reminds me a lot of Ole Miss in this way that big-bodied receivers, big test for Cortland Guillory, for Eli Bowen, which I thought they were fine for the most part. Cortland Guillory was certainly superb against Ole Miss. It feels like a lot of copy, paste. They're going to attack you in slightly different ways, but some of the things you needed to clean up can be mirrored this week, kind of similar to the Texas, South Carolina. The things you need to clean up against Texas, you needed to get Lenora Sellers down against South Carolina. And they did a good job of making enough of those gains from week over week to get back going in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought Arch Manning and Trinidad Chambliss both were successful at escaping initial pressure in the pocket and finding receivers open on the ends, on the edges. But they were also successful at setting up quickly and getting rid of the ball to big receivers, like you mentioned, over the middle, whether it was tight ends, whether it was big wide receivers running slants or crosses. That's going to be a problem. The OU safeties have been, just in terms of coverage, I think their run support has been mostly good. But just in terms of coverage, the OU safeties, for the amount of experience and talent that we've seen come back at that position, I think they've been a little short on some of the coverage situations. Last week against Ole Miss really exposed some of that. So they're going to have to be dialed in. This is an offense, Josh Heupel and his guys, Joey Halsley, Seth Luttrell, Landry Jones, they don't play. Those guys are going to try and pile up some points against their old school.
Yeah, it's something that in a weird way, isn't it crazy how if we had started the year saying, hey, they're playing a vaunted passing attack, feel pretty good about the young pieces at corner, a second-year guy and a first-year guy, and if you get Gentry back, and then Carson, it's something that you and Brent talked about on the teleconference today. By the end of the game, we saw some Jaden Hardy against Ole Miss instead of Peyton Bowen. We've seen some Robert Spears-Jennings. He obviously took the Texas game really tough. That was more tackling than coverage stuff. We saw Kendall Dolby have a coverage bust, and we haven't really seen Kendall Dolby exist on the football field since then for Oklahoma. It's an interesting situation of outside of Kendall Daniels. The questions right now seem to be like safety as opposed to corner, which is a weird spot, not a place I expected to be. And I guess we'll see if it was just a 1 week situation against Ole Miss or not.
Yeah, safety and Sheeta are both a little bit puzzling for me because you see someone like Reggie Powers III. He was great against South Carolina, wasn't very good against Ole Miss. I thought he was one of the worst defenders in that game. Peyton Bowen obviously had his rough moments against the Rebels, but Jaden Hardy, I think he's looked pretty solid. He's not called upon to be their biggest every play safety or anything like that, but he definitely adds some depth, some youth to the secondary. I think he's been really solid. I'm curious to see what the rotation is going to look like because of that. Maybe he doesn't get as many snaps against Tennessee. They might lean on their veterans against such a good passing attack. I mean, what really stands out about Tennessee is how many threats they have. I mean, Chris Brazzell, he's the obvious target. He's their star receiver. But I mean, Braylon Staley, Mike Matthews. They also have Miles Kitselman, one of the better tight ends in the nation. I mean, they can hurt you in a lot of ways. And we said that last week against Ole Miss, and we saw how that ended up. Even if it wasn't just an atrocious, implosion of the defense, they got exposed in some phases of that game. And there are some things that they'll definitely need to shore up against Tennessee. And some of that, I think, falls on the safeties.
Yeah, I think clearly the safeties need work, and that group needs to be better. And it is a surprise how that group has faltered and the cornerbacks have sort of surged. I think a big key this week, though, is going to be getting after the quarterback, and OU has done that fantastically all year. You know, they've for most of the year led the nation in sacks, tackles for loss, things like that. We saw a lot of tackles for loss last week. We didn't see the sack numbers, and I think those don't have to be super high. They don't have to get 10 sacks every week, but they need to be able to make Tennessee uncomfortable, make Joey Aguilar uncomfortable, and make those quick decisions so that you help out the back end of the defense like they've done for so much of the year, and was missing a little bit of that element last Saturday.
I'm just really interested. It felt like the issues Oklahoma's defense has had at times, specifically the third quarter against Texas, not the whole game, just the third quarter, the sustained drives. For the Ole Miss game, it was the couple of sustained drives early, and then really the thing that I thought was the backbreaker is Oklahoma goes up 26-25, doesn't get the 2-point conversion, but the defense allows an 11-play drive, and I don't think Ole Miss got to third down. Maybe they got to third down only once on that drive. They stayed out of that. When you look at what Tennessee's done, Hoove, they're they're in the top 10 in plays of 30-plus yards. They're in the top 20 in plays of 40-plus yards. I guess the question's going to be, is this a scenario where if Tennessee has a ton of success, it comes off of 4 or 5 big touchdown plays, which is kind of what we saw last year, that Tennessee's success mostly came off of 3 passing plays. And for the rest of it, Oklahoma's defense is able to dictate terms and things like that? Or is the Oklahoma defense going to be able to make sure that Tennessee not only are not getting the explosive plays, but they're not having these long sustained drives, just because it's not really been Tennessee's style to have a bunch of long sustained drives in these past couple of years under Heupel, and those specifically, I think, have been the frustration points for Oklahoma, as opposed to the big explosive plays, because we've seen, even in the Ole Miss game, as long as that play doesn't end up putting Ole Miss on the 7 or something like that, Oklahoma's defense is excellent at rallying and saving a field goal or punting near field near midfield. If they can just get into that situation, it's when the sustained drives happen that I think have been the killers for them.
Yeah, and I think last year's game against Tennessee is a little bit representative of what we might see, in that Oklahoma's defense is good enough to pretty much hang with anybody. The defense itself is. what they're going to need, and everybody loves these two words when you put them together, complementary football. They're going to need that. They're going to need the offense to do their damn part. Generate some drives, run the football like we talked about, be efficient in the passing game, score some points, hit a big play here or there. And guess what? I think the defense will be just fine against Tennessee.
Big part of that, too, is going to be can't have the special teams penalties. It's 7 special teams flags over the last 3 weeks. It's something that Jesse Crittenden asked Brent Venables about. And Brent went into the breakdown of specifically on the Jacoby Johnson holding. You had a backup in there. They got misaligned. Well, details, details, details. How many times are we going to be talking about being misaligned or like that? Holding penalties happen. Sometimes you get beat, it happens. Sometimes you get beat, you hold, and it doesn't get called. Stuff like that. I have to believe the frustration of whether it be on offense, the illegal formation penalty coming out of a timeout. Before then, Brent Venables is saying that basically they were in a bad spot because of misaligned stuff. They have to clean that stuff up because you can have great coverage teams until you give up a holding that puts you on the goal line. You thought that was bad. In Norman, try being on the goal line in the shadow of your own goalpost against this Tennessee crowd and this Tennessee student section and Rocky Top and the pride of the Southland pumping it in there. It's that kind of stuff that the defense needs help. And Oklahoma has not helped its defense out. That way, it's almost like we get all the way back to where we started, Carson, talking postgame. Oklahoma's asking this defense to be perfect. And in college football, even the elite defenses are not perfect. And they've given themselves no margin for error in a couple of these games. And that's where it gets back to, hey, if the offense, even if you punt, can you punt after 6 plays and pick up 2 first downs and run some clock and give the defense time to chill and reset field position? Or are you punting out of your own end zone? Are you getting flags on punt return? Certainly don't fumble the ball. It's just all that stuff that adds up.
Yeah, and I think the defense needs to be kept off the field better too. I mean, you saw how quick some of those drives were for Oklahoma against Ole Miss. Didn't give the defense a whole lot of time to just rest, recover. I mean, they played the most defensive plays of the year against the Rebels, and as good as this defense is, when you give them that many plays, opposing teams are going to take advantage of that. So I mean, offense has got to be better. That goes without saying, but avoiding the self-inflicted things, the special teams miscues, just shooting yourself in your own foot. I mean, like the safety, some of those special teams penalties, avoiding those things gives this team the best chance because the defense, like we said, is very good. I don't think that's really a point of debate at this point. But even the best defenses, especially against a top 5, top 10 offense in college football, it's going to allow points. That's just going to happen. Tennessee is a very good team. They have some great receivers. Big plays are going to happen. Points are going to happen. It's got to be just a lack of self-inflicted wounds. Material's got to be better. Just a lot of things have to go right.
Yeah, by the way, going to that long drive in the Ole Miss game, Ole Miss did have 2 third downs in that one. One, they didn't convert. Then they got that 4th and 1 conversion there on the last play of the third quarter. And then Trinidad Chambliss with a 10-yard run on 3rd and 8 just before the touchdown there early in the fourth quarter. So a couple of third down conversion chances for Ole Miss. One of them converted, and then they converted on 4th down on the other. And they've just got to be better in those certain situations. But like everybody else has said, they've also got to get some help because you cannot just rely on them to be perfect, because when they do that, things can, you get those drives like we saw in the third quarter against Texas, like we saw sometimes on Saturday against Ole Miss, where things just don't quite click for you. And when you put yourself in bad positions with special teams, with offense, then it becomes much more difficult to win games that are going to be close a lot of the times in this league.
Goes back to some of the old football cliches. How do you help yourself on 3rd down, Ryan? Be a lot better on 1st down, especially when you're going heads up with the Lane Kiffins of the world, the Steve Sarkisians of the world, the Josh Heupels.
Yeah, I mean, you think about this, just the offensive minds that Brent Venables has matched up with this year. And I know part of that is because there's great offensive minds in the SEC period, but there are not a lot of teams that are facing a Steve Sarkisian offense, a Lane Kiffin offense. And some of these other ones, that we've seen, OU go head to head with now, Josh Heupel and Joey Housley and that group. I thought it was fascinating yesterday listening to Brent Venables talk about Josh Heupel's evolution as an offensive coach and the way that he approaches things. I thought he was spot on with a lot of the things that he said and that we've seen in Josh Heupel since he left Oklahoma under less than ideal circumstances. And it's just another really tough matchup it gets old, but in the best league in football, the SEC. And, this will be another chance for Brent Venables to once again show what he's made of as a defensive mind, a defensive play caller.
If you've watched any Tennessee this year, you've heard this a couple times. It's not quite to Josh Dobbs territory, but after the Ohio State game in the playoff, Tennessee, Josh Heupel, the staff did go meet with some NFL staffs, trying to figure out how to more effectively use motions, things like that. So that's another wrinkle that Josh Heupel and crew have added in this year. I'm sure that Fowler and Herbie and Holly Roll talk about that plenty, especially if Tennessee's offense gets going. 6:30 in Neyland Central Time, ABC, the mothership. It will be one of the top 3 rated games in college football this weekend in viewership. History has told us the ABC SEC triple header has cleaned up shop there, as Oklahoma was part of leading that off this past week against Ole Miss. And it's one of those things that it is, as long as the faces were as you walk off the field against Ole Miss, you're not in control of your SEC championship destiny, but you get this win, you'll be able to look next Tuesday at the first CFP rankings and know exactly what you have to do, not just like beating Alabama, Missouri, LSU, but like style points involved, who do you have to root against, all that fun stuff is the SEC right in the thick of it per usual in college football playoff discussions. Elsewhere in the OU football world, not necessarily with what's happening this weekend, the Sooners did flip 4-star wide receiver Jashir Rogers, 5'11", 180. He is a burner with a capital B. Carson, this is a big flip for Oklahoma, and we spent so much time looking at the Florida recruiting class and the LSU recruiting class. Little did we know that Oklahoma was keeping tabs on Penn State and everybody up north.
Yeah, that one was a little bit shocking when I saw that come out. I mean, obviously, all those schools are going to lose a lot of players. Penn State, LSU, Florida, whatever other coaching firings we might see later in this cycle. Just a little surprising seeing the state of what OU football has looked like the last 3 weeks. But I mean, that's a huge pickup. Like you said, a very fast kid, 4-star wide receiver. So, I mean, that's huge. OU just has to really make an emphasis more than just this year, the longevity of this program, trying to keep it one of the better ones in college football, making sure they end this year on a high note, because I mean, new coach, half these kids, if not more, are probably gone. So it's great to get a commitment, but you got to wonder, I mean, what's next? Like what is next on the recruiting trail with how things are going right now?
They're grinding in 2027 as well. We know that, getting ahead of it. So it should be good here. I just personally cannot wait. I know for you guys, the last time this game rolled in, it was a weird kickoff time. It was like late afternoon kickoff time in Neyland, and then by the time you got into overtime, it was night game and all that stuff. I can't wait to get the full Carson and I are going to get there at a decent-ish time on Friday night and then be able to turn back around Hoover and get the tailgating scene in Knoxville. It's one of the most beautiful college towns that's on the calendar. And I said that this in the morning. I don't know what all the naval laws are, but I would like to board a ship. I would like to experience some Navy this weekend with the vol. I cannot wait. This has been the road trip I've had circled for a long time.
Yeah, so I won't be at the trip this year, this week. I've done Neyland Stadium in Knoxville before a couple of times, but definitely, if you're going, definitely get down to the river. The stadium's up on a hill kind of from where the river is. Get down on the river and just go meet some Vols fans. Some of Vol Navy will have their boats out there. And yeah, last time I was there, 2015, we went out there and traipsed around on some boats, met some people, sampled a little bit of barbecue here and there, some pregame tailgating. It was magical, man. It was fantastic. It's one of the coolest scenes in all of college football. I will say this, the one on Lake Washington up in Seattle, where the boats do the same thing. It's like empty, and then all of a sudden the harbor just fills up and there's boats everywhere, and they let you go down to the docks and walk around and talk to the people. It's cool as heck. But that's got mountains behind it, like real big mountains and cool stuff. So that's a little bit cooler, but nothing at all wrong with Vol Navy and the situation there, man. It's literally one of the coolest things I've ever seen for a college football game, and I've been there twice, believe it or not. First time was 1998 for the Arkansas, went down there ranked number 6 in the country, I think, or something like that. There were, Tennessee was coming off, Tennessee was on their way to a national championship, their last national championship, and Arkansas was trying to rebuild. I was covering the Hogs, and that was the Arkansas was dominating in Neyland Stadium, and then the punt snap went over the punter's head. He chased it down, kicked it out of bounds. And then, of course, the game ended on the Clint Sterner fumble where he's just trying to get a first down. He slips. He gets stepped on by their All-American guard, Brandon Burlsworth, trips and puts his hand down to brace himself, and the ball just comes out of his hand, and they recover it, and they march down the field, and they beat the Razorback. I can tell you this, guys, 106,000, 103,000. I was there in 2015 when Baker brought him all the way back, throwing those wild touchdown passes to Sterling Shepard. I was on the field for both the end of both of those games, and Aber hit it right the first time. You've never heard anything like it, and it's not just a big stadium like the Rose Bowl, right? 100,000. That sucker goes straight up, and it's like you're in a canyon. For you,
there's
movie
no
files
place
out there, you Star Wars fans, if you've ever seen that one, what was it, the Attack of the Clones, where the clones are like down in the arena and they're getting their butts kicked, and there's this big canyon. That's what this reminds me of. Is that they're right on top of you. They're screaming. They're shooting lasers. They're using the force and all kinds of crap.
Yeah, there's no place for sound to go
other
than through your ears. There,
it vibrates you too. You can feel it shaking.
Exactly. It's unlike anything. I mean, I was sort of freaked out the first time I went to Kyle Field I mentioned that Reggie McNeil game and how loud that was on the field and the press box swaying, all that. But Neyland Stadium was a different animal. And to go back to the Vol Navy, setting part of things, Ryan, get with our friend Barry Trammell, because in 2015 we actually drove up the river, dropped him off, and he caught a ride down with some Vols fans and enjoyed the full atmosphere.
Amazing. I'm hoping to cash in, and Carson does. We've got a very, very family friend and uncle, basically, that big Vols fan, has lived in Knoxville for a big portion of time. And the last time that Oklahoma rolled through, we were able to crash with him a great deal, and he was able to take us through, unhitch some orange velvet ropes for us around the Knoxville game day situation, hoping that Mike can come through big time again there. And you mentioned Aber Hoover, the noise going nowhere. Remember, this is a game where the noise goes nowhere, so much so that the away end was responsible for a key false start in the overtime period for Oklahoma and Tennessee when they were backed up into that. And that was like 2 plays before. Was it Zach Sanchez that picked it off before Eric Stryker kept up some SEC relations with the home fans? That it is a situation where
that's one of the things maybe we should have figured out today is to get Eric Stryker on the show, because he would have had some things to say, I'm sure. I've forgotten about all that, but Eric Stryker, one of my favorite players that I've ever covered.
He's a good time, and it just part of it is this is no shot at Lane Kiffin or Ole Miss or Tennessee or the Grove or any of that. Not Tennessee, Ole Miss, obviously, Oxford. But this is why it's like Oklahoma and Tennessee feels like they at least have some recent something. It was a home and home. I know it was a decade ago, the Josh Heupel of it all. And I know that Tennessee has 7,000 massive brands that they play as their protected rivals. But I would have one of those schools that would have much rather had some more Oklahoma, Tennessee back and forth, just because they meet in the softball world a little bit. You had a little bit of a Sherry and Pat Summit moment where they were both Sherry trying to get to the Pat Summit levels and things like that. It just feels like there's a little bit more intertwined moments between these two programs, considering that it's a group that didn't have a ton of reason to cross each other in different conferences for a majority of their histories.
Yeah, and let's remember, OU was supposed to go there in 2020 when COVID was it COVID that wiped out some things, or the move to the SEC? Can't remember. I know Army, obviously they were supposed to play at Army in 2020, but it's just a fantastic place, and like you said, a lot of synergy between the programs, not just football programs, but all around as far as the history to tradition. Obviously, Tennessee's got a ton of former OU guys on its staff. Not only those guys that we mentioned, but Willie Martinez, who coached the secondary with the Sooners for a couple of years. He's on that staff as well. And yeah, it would have been nice to have them instead of Ole Miss be the permanent rival, but we'll see where that one goes.
Yeah, I don't think Tennessee was going to bargain for Alabama and Oklahoma. That
Yeah, no,
and Vanderbilt suddenly.
and yeah, and Vanderbilt. It's not like this is the Vanderbilt of old. So it's just crazy how much college football has changed certainly since the 2015 game and Eric Stryker and all the SEC stuff leading it up to that, and in the aftermath of it. But yeah, I don't think Tennessee wanted any part of having that trio for sure. Although Oklahoma, at least, we'll see how good Ole Miss is, and see where Lane Kiffin ultimately winds up in all of this coaching carousel stuff.
That synergy goes on too, because Oklahoma will always, 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 for now and forever, all of eternity, have their inaugural SEC game will be the Tennessee Volunteers. Not one that anybody's going to want to remember, but just remember the electricity and the atmosphere in the stadium that night was it was kind of, for a night game, it was kind of unlike anything we've seen. The build up, game day, all day long, everybody focused on the OU campus because the Tennessee Volunteers were in town for an SEC game. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was the closest thing I can remember is the Notre Dame lead up to that, but obviously a little bit different circumstances there between those games. But those two definitely feel like they've been the most electric, at least since I've been around.
Yeah, biggest difference. James Harden didn't get traded, and the Thunder won a title. That's how you know. Also, we can't get this far into it. Having just Rocky Top and Boomer Sooner go back and forth is either the stuff of legends or nightmares, and I love that every single individual college football fan has to make that decision for themselves when they tune into ABC, and it's like, hey, 2 songs are going to get played tonight, folks. We skate to 1 song and 1 song only, and that's how both sides roll with this bad boy. 6:30 ABC. We'll be there. We'll be square. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com is your place for all the pregame coverage. We are already rolling it out. Obviously, duh. You know the drill. It's the place for all of our postgame coverage. All the videos get posted up there, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com, as well as whose YouTube page, John Hoover Media. So whichever way you consume all that stuff, you got it there for sure. Not the only thing going on this week. We are creeping up rapidly on crossover season. The Oklahoma men had their final exhibition of the year. That was on Friday night. They go to Pfizer Forum and beat Wisconsin, who's rated preseason number 24. Porter Moses is going to yell at me for talking about the result of an exhibition game as opposed to just the process that takes you there. But when you knock off Texas Tech in a secret scrimmage, then beat Wisconsin, that's what we're going to talk about there.
College basketball is ridiculous. And I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but college basketball, the fact that OU and Wisconsin play and it's an exhibition and we're going to pretend like it's not for real. And then they're going to go play St. Francis, who's going to be in Division III here next year. And that one's going to count. And then there's a secret scrimmage, but it's not really secret. We're all going to talk about it. And we're going to find out everything that happened in it and all this stuff. It's just absurd. And it just seems like when it can't get any more absurd in college basketball, it does. And so, sorry, rant over.
Rant over.
I love I love college basketball for a lot that it is, but it is the most ridiculous sport on the planet.
It also has, like, in football, you can play 33% of the year and still redshirt. And then in college basketball, if Rick Asanza walks out there and Lon Kruger does not declare that he has a back injury, then suddenly, like, no Rick Asanza at red. It's the weirdest thing, but we are here. We had some media day happenings, Carson. We talked to Porter Moser and the squad yesterday. If you watch the SEC media day stuff, Porter talked about in Birmingham embracing the portal, going out and getting 4 bona fide guys, 3 of them from power spots and then 1 from St. Joe's in the A10, which is a very, very good program, obviously. A lot of excitement, with Kai Rogers finally having two centers that actually look like centers, something that Porter talked about. What was kind of your takeaways, Carson, from the media day happenings from Porter and the crew?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what this team's gonna be because it is so new, having that many freshmen, having that many transfers. But just looking at what this team should be, as far as they were all highly ranked transfers, all the recruits were pretty dang good. You've got to like what Porter Moser is coming up with. It looks like a very talented group, definitely has some size. I know that last year they just kind of got bullied because of a lack of size. They do have true big men this year. That is huge. And I mean, I think there's a lot of momentum, and Porter was able to do this because of what happened at the end of last year, finally getting the Texas monkey off of his back. That had been a problem for so long. Finally beats them, more or less propelled them to the NCAA tournament, his first of his tenure at Oklahoma. And I mean, we might have been talking about a new basketball coach, totally new group of players if he didn't make it to the big dance last year. Getting to keep the job, keep guys like Dayton Forsyth, Mo Wagee, that's big. And then adding a really talented group. I like what they're cooking up. The SEC is no joke, though. We saw this. I mean, this used to be a bad basketball conference minus Florida and Kentucky. It's not that way anymore. I think 14 teams made the tournament last year. So you can expect it to be deep, talented again. But I do like overall what Porter Moser's building. But they'll get tested early, in addition to those, quote, secret scrimmages playing against Gonzaga early, several other Power Four opponents. I know Oklahoma State at the Paycom Center, Arizona State and Phoenix. There are a lot of good opponents. Marquette, almost forgot Marquette, Nebraska. I mean, they have a really tough non-conference, except for their games at the LNC. Those should be pretty easy, but
They suck. They suck, Carson.
They have a lot of great non-conference games, except for the ones that are going to be played where people locally can watch.
Bingo. Bingo. Except for Oklahoma State at the Paycom, there's really nothing of value to that schedule, which I wanted to ask, just didn't get around to it yesterday at the press conference. I would have loved to see at least one of those host Gonzaga, host Arizona State, somebody. Give the fans something to watch. Would have been cool, but either way, I think it's good that they'll be tested early and on the road. Really, we'll know more in a few weeks than we do now at this point.
But Carson would have loved to have seen him play. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say, I know Carson would have loved to have seen him host Arizona State, especially.
Would have been cool, for sure.
Cool. Yep.
As we see the diploma over your head.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I just wanted to interject really quick. Sometimes the basketball schedule is hard to keep up with. I'll help you out here real quick. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. You know the website by now. If you're on mobile, you go up here to the right side of your little screen right here. You can see it. You get a little closer. Hit the three dots or the three bars at the top. Click on the arrow down below that says men's basketball, and then click on schedule. We've got the live schedule on our website right there. All the games, tip-off times, opponents, who's coming up, all that stuff is right there, as well as, you may not know this, as well as a bunch of other stuff goes beyond just our page. It goes into the SI page, and you've got stats, and you've got schedule, and you've got just tons of stuff, tons of information, football, basketball, all that good stuff. So don't miss that. Oklahoma Sooners on SI. Click on the three bars, click on the men's basketball, and you got all that stuff right there at your fingertips.
Should be good. We'll be in it tonight. Sooner women have Oklahoma Christian's OC. They're playing an NBA style back-to-back. They were in Stillwater for an exhibition yesterday. They're in Norman today. Cash them checks, baby. No complaints there. Got to keep the lights on. Oklahoma, very, very, very similar. It's a season debut doubleheader for the men and the women. Then the women will head to Sacramento to take on UCLA. The men will head to Washington to take on Gonzaga. And then we'll be off and running. Basically, the Gonzaga game is the Saturday of the off week for Oklahoma. On the men's side, for the women, the UCLA game is the Monday night of Alabama week, just 2 days later. And that's how you know we are off and running. We'll put a bow on the Battle Series stuff. Aber should be out there on Friday night, assuming that we play Battle Series action when it comes to the softball side of life. Baseball's been in the middle of closing down their fall scrimmages and stuff. So, yeah, it's the fall. Sorry, I get screwed up. Spring, fall, whatevs. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com for all of your stuff there. Until next time, though, Carson and I will talk to you guys from the field at Neyland Stadium. Should be exciting there. We'll have our normal podcast next Wednesday. It'll be with the off week. Generally, we talk to players and guys like that on Wednesday night, so we probably won't have spoken to anyone since Tennessee post game by the time we talk to you guys next Wednesday, but there'll be plenty to cover: basketball, football, bye week, CFP rankings. First one's next Tuesday, all that fun stuff. We'll hit it all then. But for Aber, for Carson, for Hoove, I'm the other Ryan, and we'll talk to you guys on Saturday.